to this very special and heart-rending and heartwarming edition of Crush Your Mountain Personal Growth. Today I have with me a very special individual, a very special woman. You met, if you remember, a few months ago, we interviewed Miss Stacy Kutley, and she discussed her challenges, what she went through in terms of dealing with years of abuse. I have with me today another individual, another young woman, and we're going to talk about what she experienced, what she dealt with, and how she triumphed, but more importantly, what she's doing now to help not just herself, but others as well. After years of infidelity, physical maltreatment, and miscarriage of a child, as well as the death of another child, Kerri Heddell has crushed through her pain to become an advocate for those who experience the victim mentality. Despite all that life has thrown at her, she's managed to become a fantastic COO, Chief Operating Officer of a thriving business consulting firm, as well as a formidable social media strategist, and that's her own business as well. Let's learn of what happens when her inner power, when she uses that, and her deep faith and love helps her to crush through the mountains of abuse and disappointment to reach a life that she wants. She is a powerhouse, ladies and gentlemen, and within all of that beautiful power, there's a gentleness like a quiet storm. Let's welcome together Kerri Heddell. Welcome to Crush Your Mountain Personal Growth.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's we've talked and
it's been a long time coming, Henry. Long time coming.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad that we're here because I number one, I want all individuals to understand what happens and what persons go through in their thinking, and also though where you are now, because you're creating your life. And that's what I work with a lot of my clients on, is creating their life. Many of them have come from where you have come from, and they prefer to stay in the background, and that's a good thing because that's their healing. The thing about you is your healing is what you're doing now, and so please share with us a little bit about your experience. Now you got married, and things seemed good. Tell me about that.
Yep, I got married in 2003. I met my husband when I was a flight attendant. I was actually, it was right after 9/11. I was flying through, I was flying during 9/11. And then in December of that same year, I was flying into Rochester, New York, and we ended up having an emergency evacuation on the plane, and we ended up staying overnight in Rochester, and that's where I met my husband. And so we just started, we started talking and having this relationship, and he was in Rochester, I was in DC, so it was a long distance relationship, but he was amazing.
Okay, so it was a long distance relationship, and so that being the case, it just he seemed like Mr. Perfect, and having that long distance allowed him to keep a lot of things from you, huh?
Yeah. So he was a devout Catholic. His family, they were very strong Catholics. There were 6 kids in his family, and they were his parents. They lived in a small town outside of upstate New York, and I was so excited to be, this guy. And I had some bad relationships in the past, just some off and on stuff. So I just was really excited to I knew that this was who I was going to marry.
Yeah. So what was the wedding like? How did things and then how long was it before you realized, uh-oh, something's seriously wrong here? What was the wedding
So
like?
we got married in May of '03, and we got married in Warrenton, Virginia, which and it was a fairy tale wedding. It was at the house that we got married at was like a almost like a Gone with the Wind house. I remember my mom and I went and found the venue, and we just I was so excited about the house and everything that we were going to be doing. And we had, it was out in the country. So it was just a really neat, everything was going to be at the house. So the reception, the service, everything was there. So, and my in-laws, they owned a winery up in upstate New York, and so and they brought wine bottles with our names on them, engraved on them and everything. So it was just such a neat experience.
Hmm. And then things began to take a turn. How soon did things begin to turn?
So we were gifted a honeymoon or a cruise for our honeymoon. And we went on the honeymoon on the cruise. He was working for a commercial airline at the time. And so we were able to fly from DC to Long Beach, California to meet the boat. And we went to Catalina, and then we went on to Mexico. So it was like a 7-day cruise, and things were great. And we came back home, and they we got a call from the bank that we were overdrawn in our checking account, and um, I was a little confused as to what was going on. And so I asked him what happened, and he told me that he had miscalculated on some bills, that things were just not, um, he just wasn't, he wasn't paying attention to something or whatever. I don't remember exactly, but anyways, the balance ended up getting taken care of, and I just believed what he said and just went, and we went on. And then it was about 3 months in, we were at a Bible study, a couples Bible study that we were a part of, at a church that we were attending. And we were driving home that night, and he told me, he said, I need to talk to you. And he said, I need to tell you something. And that's when he explained to me that he had a pornography addiction, and that he had been dealing with this for about 15 years. And he didn't feel like that he needed to tell me about it before we got married, because he felt like us getting married would cure him.
Hmm. So, question is, did it cure him?
No.
Could you explain to us how you found out that it didn't cure him?
Well, so he told me that he was going to try and change, and that he was trying to work through it, and that he was going to do counseling and everything. And so I believed him. I didn't think that it was, a big deal. And so I just, and then, I, I came home, I came home early one day from work, and, I wanted to go to lunch with him, and I called to him. I saw his car was in the driveway. I called to him. He didn't answer. And then, so I ran upstairs because I thought maybe he was taking a nap or something. And when I went up there, he was in bed with 3 prostitutes.
Okay, so let's back up just a second. Just say that again. He was where? With what?
In bed with 3 prostitutes.
3.
Mhm.
Not one, not 2, but 3.
Mhm.
Okay, all female.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when you saw that?
I couldn't believe this. I didn't understand it. I didn't, it was, but I was stupid and well, not at the time, but I went screaming down the stairs and he came down and he tried to apologize and I took him back and, I said that, if he was going to change, then things were going to be better. So that was, but it didn't change.
Well, think I would ask you this, okay? What were you thinking about yourself at this point where you walk in on that he's disclosed it? First of all, he never explained to you exactly what happened to how much money were you in the hole for on the overdraft?
Oh, 3,000.
$3,000. 3,000. Okay, an overdraft and for me it's like, okay, $10, $5. Okay, I'll fix that. Okay, but $3,000, that's a heck of an overdraft. And he never explained to you where that money came from or where that money went or what happened to it. And then he pulls over. He pulls over on the side of the road and says, "I've got a pornography problem." And then you walk in to what I could imagine is just for you. It should have been an absolute horror. I can imagine. What were you saying? What was going through your mind about you at that point?
I think I was not feeling like that I was enough for him. I was feeling like that, I didn't understand why he was doing this. I didn't understand why he would lie to me. I didn't understand. My mom likes to say we were hoodwinked. Um, you know, I I don't I don't totally understand why I was raised in a Christian family, so it was very difficult for me to honestly believe that this was actually happening to me. I felt like I was in a movie or in a dream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can certainly understand that. You know, you know. You mentioned your spiritual background, and there is a saying in Proverbs. It's very interesting. Okay, Solomon is talking, and this is a man that should know. He had 1,000 women. Okay, 700 wives, 300 concubines, according to the scripture, right? But he said something. He says something that he'll never understand. He says, "The way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a ship in the ocean, the way of a serpent on the rock, and the way of a young man with the heart of a woman." A young woman. It speaks to the slyness that some men have in manipulating a woman's heart. And it sounds like that's what was happening there. It sounds like he was hiding a lot from you, and that he went on to, you know, he, you were. Would you say that he asked you a lot of questions as you guys were dating?
Did he ask me a lot of questions?
Yeah,
No, that was the thing. Everybody loved my husband.
sure.
Everybody loved.
But
When I was dating him, nobody. They thought he was like the best thing. Like he was outside. He was an amazing guy. He was such a nice guy, and everybody loved him, and everybody thought he was just the best thing, and people couldn't believe, and that was one thing, people couldn't believe it when I told them that he
mm,
would push me down the stairs, that he would spit in my face, that he would cup his ears and scream in my ears. People were just shocked. They were like, "Are you sure?" They thought maybe I was doing something, you know.
Well, when did that type of abuse start? The psychological and physical abuse. When did that start? Because now you've dealt with this horror, and did you leave for a little bit, at least at that point, just to walk out, or did you?
No.
So, so, and what made you stay at that point? Was it family that talked to you? Was it just
My
you?
mother-in-law, my mother-in-law told me that in the Bible it says to leave and cleave. And so I stayed, and she told me that, where my husband goes is where I need to be. And so I stayed,
Mm,
but yeah, the problem was that we started losing a lot of things. He got a job. He got a job for the federal government, and they found out that he was looking on the computer at stuff in the government, and so he lost his job, and so we lost money, and so we uh, and so we ended up having to go stay with friends and family, and people were not comfortable always having us stay there because they knew what was going on. And a lot of my friends and a lot of the people that we stayed with were Christians, and they basically said, if he does this, you guys are out, or if he does this, he's out. That's what they said. And so there was we got kicked out of a few places. And so, but he would get very stressed out about the bills and money. And if we didn't have money, and if we didn't have, if we didn't have something to pay something, and so he would come at me, and he would corner me. He would push me down the stairs. He would spit in my face. He would yell and scream at me. To this day, my hearing is not very good. I have hard time hearing sometimes, just because my hearing has kind of gone. But there was a time I was driving in the car, and he was repeatedly hitting me on my back, and knocked the phone out of my hand, out of my ear, that I was talking, and I was talking to my dad, and my dad found out where we were, and my dad went chasing him through the woods, and grabbed him. So he was it was horrific. I mean, I've never I it was 10 years of just. And we went to the church, and the church tried to help, and the church paid for him to go to Every Man's Battle.
what is every man's battle? What is that?
It's for men that have sexual addictions. Mhm.
And how did he fare with that?
I'm sorry, what?
How did he fare with that? How did that work for him?
I mean, I thought he was doing well, but I went to they do like a halfway point where they let like your spouse, family, friends come to celebrate your halfway point. And I went in there, and I was talking with the people that were there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that he's able to be here, and that he's able to take advantage of this. And they looked at me, and they were like, he's only come to like four of the sessions, and he should have been already coming to 16. So and when I confronted him about it, he told me that he had gotten lost, and that he couldn't find his way, and and at that time we didn't have GPSs, like we didn't have all that kind of stuff that we have now. But I mean, I printed out some MapQuest directions for him. I mean, gee whiz. So
Yeah, yeah. So he admits he has an addiction. He's and it's not just a looking; it's a jumping into bed with people thing. So we don't even know what else he's done, and he gets lost 12 times out of 16,
yeah, and didn't ask for directions.
and then that's what right. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
men don't ask for directions, but men get when we want to
He's
do
gonna come
something,
and ask me though.
when we want to get somewhere, we're going to get somewhere. You see what I'm saying? And if
Yeah,
we get a map, we're going to get somewhere. But the
yeah.
question is, did you ever ask, well, what were you doing all those times that you got lost?
I didn't ask, but I knew. I mean, I knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
I
a
mean, he used to say that we were that that we were that we were that he envisioned us in a movie. Mm.
what movie? The Shining.
No,
I
no,
mean,
like
I mean,
like
I,
a porn movie.
well, yeah, okay, okay, the Shining, the dirty version. I mean, because obviously there's a problem, but when you are abusing somebody like that, you see, that's not that's a serious problem, you know. So now, at what point did you finally say, "Look, I'm done"?
Well, there were several times that we separated, but every time I kept going back. Every time I would go back, and then it finally came down to a time where a very close friend of mine who was actually the pastor that married us. He's known me for probably most of my life, and I went to him and I told him, I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I feel like I've done everything I can do and I don't know what to do. And uh, he, he said, let's meet. He said, let the three of us, let's meet. And so we met at the church and we all sat down and uh, he asked my husband, he said, what's going on? And he told him, he said, I beat my wife. And that was probably one of the most realist moments I've ever had in my life, because the fact that he could say that with a straight face was almost disturbing. And he just he looked us both straight in the face and said, I beat my wife every day. And there was no emotion, and there was no remorse, and there was nothing. And I knew at that time that this was over. I couldn't, like, I had been such a fool to spend 10 years of my life trying to fix him when he didn't give a crap.
Yeah, yeah. Going through these things, having gone through those things, when you looked at yourself each day after dealing with some new horror that he put you through, what were you saying to yourself?
That I was an idiot for thinking that this guy was my guy. I lost every bit of trust that I had in anything, and I was so embarrassed that this had happened to me. Um, I left. I ran. I went out. I got so far out of Dodge that I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I was embarrassed that my husband just openly admitted to a friend of mine that he did all this. So it was I just felt like it was demeaning, demoralizing. It was just horrible.
So you finally separated.
We didn't get a divorce though for 2 years because once again, I was an idiot.
Well, talk to us about that.
I kept on, I, you know, I, again, after I left, I felt like I felt like there was still good in him. I felt like that there was still an opportunity for him to change. And so I reached out to him and said, can you change? Can you make this change? And so divorce papers had been filed, but I didn't sign for a year and a half because I felt like he could still be redeemed. I felt like he could still I felt like, I still felt like in my heart he was the love of my life.
So from what I'm hearing, he is the one that consistently cheated and abused you, cheated on and abused you, and you separate. Oh, and by the way, he casually mentions very, very, very matter of factly that he beats his wife every day as if it's okay. But then on top of that, it sounds like after you separated, he filed the divorce papers. Am I right to
He
say that?
did. Mhm.
How soon after you separated did he file the divorce papers?
So we separated. Uh, I think it was like 6 months to a year. Because in the state of Virginia, if you don't have kids, which we did not have kids, in the state of Virginia, you you have to be separated for at least 6 months before you can file. So it had to have been at least 6 months. I can't remember exactly, but it was around 6 months.
Mhm. But yet you wanted to continue to try to save the salvage it.
Mhm.
So ultimately, the divorce papers were signed and you went your separate ways. How did you manage that? Had you given up on love? Had you decided to find someone, or what space were you in at that point?
Yeah, I didn't come back up to Washington, DC. I stayed where I was at. And I started dating another guy,
Where were you at the
uh,
time?
Virginia Beach.
Okay.
I started dating another guy. And it was, again, I thought that this, I really honestly wasn't really knowing what was going to happen. I was not in a good space. I had just gotten divorced. I was still reeling from all that. And um, I was, I felt very disconnected from the church. And there was just a lot of emotions going on. And so I met this guy and we started dating, and um, it was almost mirror image of um, what I had been through, but it was more emotionally and verbally than physically. And and so I was with him for 5 years, and then I left. But right before I left Virginia Beach to come back to DC, um, I was packing my stuff to get out of there. And his brother came in, and he was drunk, and he was having just a moment, and he had a gun, and he shot the gun, and it just grazed by my head, and it just barely missed me. And I knew at that moment that I needed to go, and I ran with everything that I had and got in my car and drove 4 hours to back up to DC.
There are, as we mentioned earlier, men have a way with women and women have a way with men. But the question that kind of recurs in my mind: at what point do we say or better yet, 10 years, 5 years, why stay so long?
Yeah. I don't really have the answer to that, Henry. I've been asked that multiple times, and I've even been asked that with my most recent relationship. So I don't have the answer to that. For some reason, I tend to like these long drawn out relationships, but I I don't know. I think I think part of it is just I think part of it with my husband was I was afraid to leave. I didn't know what, if anything, he would do if I left. I tell people that I can relate to so many movies. Like there's the movie with J Lo that's Enough, where she's, got all that, she trains and does all that training stuff. And so, I can definitely relate to that. I can, but it's I don't know. I don't know why I stayed. I mean, it's it's a mystery to me, but I know today that um one of my very, very, very close friends who you interviewed last week um has reminded me many times that I am not a victim, and I refuse to be a victim to these three men that have done this to me. So
Well, that's the important thing, is to understand where your mind is, bringing in your mind and your state of being and your self perspective away from that victim mentality.
mhm,
And that's what we admire about you, because you took that stand for yourself.
mhm.
But in the interim, you had another challenge. We mentioned earlier that you lost two children effectively. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. I so after I came back up to Virginia Beach, from Virginia Beach to DC, I I met who I thought was going to be the last guy that I would probably be with. And he was basically my savior. He helped me get back on my feet. He created stability for me. He got me an apartment. He basically did anything and everything that I needed him to do for me, and helped me, just get back on solid ground. And it was amazing. And I knew that I probably wouldn't get married again because I wasn't really in the space to get married, but he was my guy. Like I loved him. And so things with him were good for the first few years. And then uh all of a sudden things started just things started getting really kind of out of whack. He started being very controlling. He started telling me that basically I was the person that I am today because of him, that he had made me, and that I was nothing without him. And that, it got to be very emotionally draining. And then last year I found out that I was pregnant. And I found out that I was pregnant with twins. And I lost one during my pregnancy, and then I lost the other one in December of this past year.
So sorry.
And she passed away in the NICU. And that was probably one of the worst times of my entire life.
Yeah, to lose a child that way. But the powerful thing is that you're here and sharing your story to so many individuals is such an important thing that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know I heard you on one podcast, but in order to help others with very much similar backgrounds, what are you doing?
So in June of this year, I partnered up with a very, very close friend of mine, who owns a company out in Chino, California, and I got named the COO of his company, and he has my heart 100%. He's been tremendous in challenging me and helping me to really just really change my thought process and just not or to get out of my just self-pity areas that I've been in. And I don't believe that I would be where I am today if it hadn't been for him. He's helped me tremendously. But we've definitely had our challenges in our friendship, but he challenges me in so many ways. And so I'm honored to be able to be his COO. And so I've been helping him with Genomics and helping him get, things launched and gain clients and just really get things going and getting the business on solid ground. Not that it wasn't before, but just really just helping him, because he's got two other businesses that he's doing. And so just being able to help him and kind of be that sounding board for him. And we help each other. I believe we help each other. I believe we challenge each other. And just I do a lot of his social media. I help him with his social media. I help some of the clients with social media. I do social media strategy. I do graphics. I do a lot of everything, Henry. Facebook is my strong platform. I know Facebook like the back of my hand. But I just really love helping business owners kind of find their way and have that visibility. But but also I'm really also trying to work on defining and designing my domestic violence platform, because I do want to be a resource to women. I feel like that during these dark times that I've been through, I know that I didn't feel like I had any hope. I mean, there was days where I would go to bed at night. I wouldn't know if I was going to wake up the next day. There was some nights where I wanted to kill myself. There was some nights where I wanted to just disappear. And these men controlled me and controlled everything that I did. And so I can say to you, honestly, I refuse to ever be in that situation again. No man will control me ever. But I want to speak to the women that are involved in these situations, because I know what it's like to not have hope. And I know what it's like to not have that hope.
Well, to that end, I understand you have developed or are developing a podcast. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that and what it's about, what is it called, and how are you using that platform to elevate women who may be dealing with some of the things that you've dealt with.
So my podcast is going to be called Coming Out of the Dark. And you got to make sure you say it just right, Henry. Coming out of the dark.
So it's kind of a northern Boston type thing, coming out of the dark. Is that what I mean? It's like coming out of the dark. Right. Okay. I'm gonna work on that. And see if I can say it correctly. Because originally I'm from Brooklyn, so I can say these things correctly.
Correct.
But tell us more about coming out of the dark.
So it's going to be it's going to be a platform for women to come on and share their stories, share where they're at. I want to develop resources for women to be able to take advantage of. I want it to be a safe space for women to be able to tell their stories, because I know for me, I mean, even as I'm here now, I know that I am very cautious about, who knows where I'm at, who knows my address, who knows my different, my comings and goings. I don't do a lot of posting on Facebook, but just, so I know what it's like to be kind of under that veil, so I want it to be a safe space. So I haven't fully started it yet, but I'm really excited to have that space, and to have that space for women and be able to just offer that hand of hope.
Yeah. Well, we're going to give you a time window. We need a launch date because this is something we want to hold you accountable for. And I'll tell you one better. I have a good friend of mine that I can perhaps introduce you to that might be able to, we may be able to somehow collaborate on that. You see, excuse me, I have a couple of friends of mine that can help us in that area because, so many people, so many women deal with this. So let me ask you this also, if you were going to pick a date, we're now in September, okay? So this is the fall. Talk about legends of the fall. This is the fall, okay? But now, would you like to consider launching it in the spring or the winter? In fact, if I may suggest, pick a target date of the spring because spring is when the light is coming and indeed you would be coming out of the dark. What about it? What do you think?
I do like that, and I understand your concept. I will say my favorite day of the year is my birthday. And so I would probably say that I will launch it on my birthday, which is December 16th.
Okay, okay, December 16th. And you'll be 16 years old at that time because
I'll be 16, Henry, yes. I turn 16 every year.
that's perfect. Perfect, perfect. Better than me. I've turned 61 every year, actually. Well, listen, you know, kudos to you for taking charge. And, we're sorry that you went through the things that you have gone through. All of us have our personal challenges. That's why this show is called Crush Your Mountain, because of that. That said, Kerri Heddell, with everything that you've gone through and all the things that you bring to the table as a person and a woman of extreme value, Kerri Heddell, what does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
I think to me it means that I'm no longer a victim to my circumstances. I am no longer controlled. I'm no longer tied to those men, to those situations. I can move freely, or as freely as I feel like I can right now. But I can move freely into the next season of my life, and I don't have to keep looking back.
Right. That's amazing. You know, friends, if you think about that for a moment, we have a choice. We can either carry our baggage and let it weigh us down, or we can cut it loose and move forward. And no matter what we're dealing with, no matter what you or me, what we might deal with, always understand that as long as there's breath in your body, as long as there is a will within you, And as long as you accept the fact that you are a person of value, and regardless of what you may think you are because you're alive and you're here, you can move forward and create something different and better for yourself. That is the essence of personal growth. So once again, Kerri, we want to say thank you so very much for being with us. We really value you. We look forward. We're going to wait for your coming out of the dark on December 16th of this year. I'm going to hold you to that.
Thank you.
And we will also, of course, wish you all the success with Genomics and
Thank
all
you.
the other business endeavors that JDP is doing at this point. He's a cool guy, and perhaps one of these days we'll be touching base with him on some other projects. There are so many things that we can do, but what we can say, friends, like I always tell you, okay? And before I even go there, I want to say again to many of the men who may be tuning in, all right? I've known too many women who have kept silent. And it breaks my heart. And I've seen the aftermath of what has been done to women. Guys, if you have a problem, and if you don't think you have a problem, but you're doing all this stuff, and you got to do it in the dark, you got a problem. And if you think it's okay to mistreat, physically attack, and beat your woman down, what does that do for you? It does not make you more of a man. It makes you less of a man. Get help. Do something good for yourself. Because if you can elevate yourself by getting help and now treat someone the way they should be treated, then you are saying that you are worthy of the woman and of life itself, if you want to know the truth. Because God did not put you here to mistreat another human being. That said, this is the show that I always end by saying, don't just climb your mountain, crush through it. And in this case, don't ever give up on love. Don't give up on your life. Create your life for yourself. Crush through your mountain. We will see you next time. Thank you so very much, Kerri.
Thank you, Henry.